今日我哋咧又請到 Mimi 上嚟咧，呢一個叫做 Community Civic Forum 係講我哋加拿大呢個即係我哋 community 同埋呢一個
加拿大政府
係
點樣 work
一樣 work，OK。
係啦，
但 community civic 啊，唔係講即係 citizen 啊公民嘅一個
係
組織，
唔係一個組織。
OK，
其實呢一個咧就係我同阿 Nick。一陣間大家喺 video 度見到嗰個主要嗰個 speaker。
其實我而家即刻撳佢咪知咯。係
啦，係
去咗。係
啦，咁樣就其實係我同佢一齊搞嘅一個 forum 嘅意思，就係大家一個互動嘅嘢嚟嘅。我哋係希望成嚿嘢咧，大家係可以互動嘅。咁呢一個 video 本身咧，就係我哋係當係一個 introductory 咁樣嘅意識，就係等大家kind of 知道我哋想講啲乜，然後我哋希望大家話俾我哋知你想知道啲乜，咁然後我哋就循住你嘅主導，我哋去 tailor 一啲以後嘅 session， 去大家去參詳一下，大家去理解一下。如果唔明嘅話，大家一齊去 explore 究竟加拿大呢個國家係點 work。
或者係加拿大公民係，
作為一個公民社會嘅一份子，點樣可以 get involved？係咁嘅意思。
咁我哋去片㗎啦喎。
好啊。
好。
The idea of this first introductory kind of session is to give you the basics of how Canada works, the structures. So what we are going to be doing is we're going to be missing out on some of the important kind of aspects of Canada, like our history with the French, for example, or with the Indigenous peoples of this land. Not to because they're not important, but just because today is just about getting to the structure of how Canada actually works. And so let's get started. So as you see, this country of ours is broken up into a bunch of different provinces and territories. And they can our country can be described in many different ways. And I'm going to start with, let's get going here. Okay, let's start with constitutional monarchy. Some of these words are big words that may sound kind of intimidating, but you know, if we break them down, it'll be a lot more easy to understand. So Canada is a constitutional monarchy. What does this mean? So let's break it down. Constitutional refers to the laws of the land. These are the agreements that when Canada became a country, these are the agreements of the territories that were involved with this country. And at that time, it was just, you know, Ontario, Quebec, and a couple of the eastern provinces that got together and came up with an idea of Canada. And so the Constitution really is all of our laws. It really describes how the government interacts with us, how we interact with each other legally. It also refers to all of our rights and our freedoms. A Charter of Rights and Freedoms is in our Constitution. So this is kind of the big law of the land, and it doesn't change no matter what government comes in that we vote in. The Constitution always remains the same. Now.
嗱呢度咧，其實佢嘅意思就係話，即係佢企圖想解釋憲制係乜嘢，憲法係乜嘢。咁因為佢係驚咧，大家即係嗰啲呢啲咁嘅大字咧，佢叫做嚇。係啊
，monarchy 係皇。
係君主政制。君主制度係啦。係啦，咁其實就係一個 mix， 即係加拿大係 under 呢個君主政制，但係 at the same time 我哋係有憲法。係咁嘅意思。即係其實係君主立憲啊。係啦，冇錯啦。
OK， 好，我哋繼續咯。
Now, monarchy refers to really our history with the English. And today, the actual head of state, the head of the state of Canada, is King Charles III. It used to be Queen Elizabeth, but King Charles is actually the head of the state of Canada. Of course, he's a pretty busy guy. So
Big guy?
I'm sorry? Anita, did you want to ask a question?
No, no question.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's okay. He oversees, or he's the king of many different places around the world. Actually, 16 different countries have King Charles as their king, including Canada. So he is represented. He can't be everywhere, so he has representatives in the different countries that he's the king in. And in our country, that's the Governor General. And largely, this relationship, the relationship that the king has with Canada, is largely ceremonial. He really doesn't make too many decisions. So, it's important for this to be part of the discussion only because it exists. Although, like I said, it's very ceremonial. There's not a lot that the king actually can do in our country. The people who actually make the decisions in our country are in this next description of what Canada is. So Canada is also a parliamentary democracy. So if we take those two words, let's break them down again. So parliamentary refers to the system that we use. So how we make the laws, who makes the laws, the systems that create how we interact. And democracy obviously refers to our way of achieving a government. So we, the people, this is where our role comes in. So we all vote and we bring in a government, and that's the democracy part. And of course, democracy, is different in different areas of the world that it's used. So democracy is on a spectrum. So we can have a longer discussion about democracy afterwards, but generally, I think we all have an understanding of what democracy is. And so the prime minister is the head of our government, okay, not the head of our state. Okay, the state is King Charles. He remains always, no matter what government we vote in. But our prime minister is voted in by us. And actually, the prime minister is a simple MP, a member of parliament, that is voted in an area like Markham, for example. We have 3 ridings in Markham, 3 federal ridings in Markham. Justin Trudeau, our prime minister today, is an MP in a riding in Montreal. And so he is actually the one that is the head of government. Okay? So our next slide here. So the Constitution is up at the top. This is the rules of the land. Okay, the monarchy is next because that monarchy never leaves. That's the head of state. And now below the monarchy there's 3 branches of our government. And this is so the first branch is our legislative branch. Now, the legislative branch refers to our 2 houses. So we have a Senate, which is here, and we have a House of Commons. Now, the Senate is where all of our senators are. Now, senators are not elected by us. They're actually appointed by the Prime Minister. Okay, so that house is called the Upper House. Okay, this is really interesting because this is historical. And the House of Commons, where all of our MPs sit, so these are the people that we vote in federally. Okay, they're called members of parliament. That's what MP means. And they sit in what's called the lower house, which is very interesting. So Commons, House of Commons means the House of the people. That's how it would, if you were to interpret it in a different way. It's a House of the people. And the senators is the upper house, and that's traditionally was where all the economic elite would be. And the senators all represent different areas of the country fairly. However, they are appointed. So this is where things have changed dramatically in our country because they do not have the power that they used to have. Okay, so what happens is in our next branch, which is called the executive branch, Okay, this is who makes all the decisions. Okay, it's our prime minister, who's the head of government, and his cabinet, which are the people he appoints to head different areas of interest in Canada, different ministries, we call them. So the Minister of Health, for example, the Minister of Environment, the Minister of International Affairs, Intergovernmental there's a whole bunch of ministries that we have. And they are the ones who actually create the law. They take that law, they bring it to the House of Commons, okay? The House of Commons then votes on that law, whether it should be passed or not. And if they approve it, it then goes to the Senate, okay? And then the Senate has to approve it as well. Now, again, just like the monarchy, the Senate is largely symbolic. They may have suggestions sometimes when laws are created saying, maybe this law needs a little bit of tweaking here and there. We have to change it just a little bit. And they'll send that law back to the House of Commons for our MPs to debate it and to upgrade it. But every law has to be passed by the Senate. Okay, so when the Senate passes it and it's ready for approval, who do you think is the last person to sign? Anybody? Here's where the symbolic comes in. That is our Governor General, the King. He's the last person to say, okay, it meets the requirements of our Constitution, and I will sign it. But again, that's largely symbolic. Does this make sense? Does anybody have any questions so far?
Let me ask you one question.
Sure.
So you were talking about the Senate, they no longer have the power that they used to be. Is that a good thing or a bad thing, you think?
Oh, that's interesting. I think, honestly, the way our country is set up, I think it's a good thing. However, if we were to make changes and alterations to how our processes work, I think that it's redundant, and we probably don't need it, because again, it's largely symbolic now. They are overseers. They do look at laws and they scrutinize them, but that is also done in the House of Commons, the people's house, right? Our house, where our representatives, they represent our values, right? So when we vote for somebody, we hope that person is going to represent what we believe in the lower house, in Parliament, in the House of Commons. So all the work.
嗱，頭先我哋喺度聽咗好大段嘢啦，基本上。咁其中一樣嘢咧，我喺個 video 度當時就問阿 Nick， 我就話，即係既然啲 Senate 都嗰個權力冇以前咁大啦，咁係一件好事定壞事咧？咁嗱，其實咧，大家如果記得我哋上年嗰個 Emergency Act 嘅時候咧，就係響下議院過咗，然後就上咗去 Senate 嗰度，佢哋有個 debate，
係冇錯，
終歸就喺嗰度咧 cut 翻轉頭掟翻走嘅，冇錯。所以 in some way 雖然佢哋嘅權力已經冇以前咁大，但係喺一啲好 critical 嘅情況之下，有機會係可以扭轉某一啲嘅嘢嘅，係冇錯嚇。咁但係亦都係因為頭先阿 Nick 亦都講過啦，我哋嘅 Senate 咧就唔係我哋自己選出嚟嘅，就係咁多歷年嚟嘅 MP appoint 落去嘅。PM 係 Prime Minister，sorry 係咁其實係有辣有唔辣嘅，因為 Senator 嘅 appointment 咧係終身嘅。佢一被 appoint 咧，佢就以後都坐喺嗰度啦。所以咧。如果坐足一世，咁咧嗰情況咧就係、如果你諗下係個 PM appoint 嘅，咁即係我哋好友我先 appoint 你啦。咁梗係啦，係嘛？咁我 appoint 你，我有啲咩隊上嚟，你梗係幫我啦。冇錯。咁即係話嗰個政府在 empower 得耐啲嘅話，你 appoint 嘅 senator 就越 多。
冇錯。
咁即係話結果係好容易嗰個 Senate 成個 Upper House 咧係會走歪咗，
即係 shift 咗去
其中一邊，
或者係最長時間
在為嗰一個
PM 咁大鑊啦。
即係呢個問題，其中一個問題就係呢一度啦。
咁咧其實咧即係頭先我哋講過 Emergency Act 啦，咁你都即係好多人都知道我其實係support 呢個貨車司機嘅。咁我就係非常對呢個 Emergency Act 非常唔中意嘅。咁而近排咧又有一個叫 Bill C11 啦，就喺以我所知咧就應該係喺 Senate 嗰度喺 debate 緊，唔知過咗未？有啲人就話已經過咗，有啲人就話
好混亂，因為有太多嘢發生緊。其實
因為嗰個咧有兩樣嘢嘅，一個咧就 online news 啦，另外即係 C11 啦，另外仲有一個咧就係好似 online broadcasting，
係冇錯。
咁就係 sort of 係限制咗，譬如如果你係 even 你係喺加拿大嘅 YouTuber， 你係要有 certain amount 或者 portion 嘅加拿大 content， 你先至 preferably 俾 YouTube 去 recommend 你嘅，即係類似咁上下啦。咁我記得喺 Senate 嗰度咧，就即係啲大部分嘅 senator 咧都係 pass 咗嗰個，即係俾呢一個 C11 pass 嘅。咁其實嚟講，呢個會唔會係因為 Trudeau 係喺嗰個在位太耐咧，所以佢擺呢啲咁嘅標上去咧 ，even 係 sort of restrict 咗我哋加拿大人即係可以睇到嘅嘢啊，或者係 content。In a way 係扼殺咗我哋某程度上面嘅言論自由啦。
嗱，其實你講呢樣嘢係好得意嘅。
係。
你記唔記得咧？好多年前咧，我哋啲 RSP 咧，又係有一個 restriction 係要有唔可以多過 certain amount of international content。係冇錯。佢要逼你一定要買加拿大嘢嘅。
冇錯。
嗱，我哋已經冇咗呢樣嘢啦。係。點解而家我哋嗰啲 broadcasting 又會開倒車咧？係啦
，online 嗰啲
係啦，即係唔 make sense 啊！
係啊，唔知點解，因為其實咧譬如我哋加拿大，譬如 Global News 啊，或者係其他電視台啊，諸如此類，已經 somehow 係俾 CRTC control 啊，或者 restrict 咗好多嘢㗎。
係啊，
但係我哋連即係喺 online 嗰度發聲咧，都係要開始俾佢哋即係有個審查啊，或者有個控制啊。呢一樣嘢我覺得係影響好大咯。
喺某程度上咧，佢哋係將所有嘅嘢都要握得好緊。即係你以前有好多自主權啊，你可以自己整咩都得啊。而家就樣樣嘢都話我又要想咁，我又要想咁咯。或者
係俾政府控制，你一定要行佢想行嗰條路。而唔係話你可以自由咁樣去選擇我做呢樣嘢，或者我講呢一樣嘢。Even 都其實即係某程度上面，我哋嘅言論自由咧係應該我哋基本上係中意講乜或者應該講乜就講乜，即係唔係俾佢控制喎。
你 sort of 覺得好似而家就係你喺網度講啲嘢，你就要審查過。你喺地下講嘢反而冇事喎。
係，因為佢捉唔到啊嘛，因為冇 record 到啊嘛。
係啦，就係咁啦。
咁其實呢樣嘢，我覺得好同呢個共產黨好相似咯。即係某程度上面，我亦都睇到咧，即係呢一個 forum 開始某程度上面嘅原因咧，就因為我自己覺得喺加拿大嚟講咧，係越嚟越似共產黨啊。
加拿大而家係有好多嘢都係越嚟越唔民主啦，不如話
越嚟越獨裁啦，或者越嚟越唔民主，咪即係越嚟越獨裁咯。係，因為相反噶嘛，嗰兩個字係咪先？係冇錯，係越嚟越獨裁咯。
係啊，所以其實我哋即係我同阿 Nick 點解要搞呢一個 forum 咧？其實就係想大家點解要嚟加拿大咧？一開始我哋大部分嘅人 點解要嚟加拿大呢？都係因為睇到香港嘅情況 ，whether 你係80年代嚟、90年代嚟，又或者係啱啱嚟都好啦。其實大家嚟主要嘅原因都係睇到香港嘅情況只會越嚟越差，所以先至要離開我哋嘅屋企啫。係冇錯，係咪啊？即係你無論點睇都好，香港本身都係我哋屋企嚟嘛。係一定啦。係啦，好啦，到我哋而家嚟到啦，喂，都越嚟越學你話齋獨裁啦，同埋另一樣嘢就係，如果我哋作為香港人係因為呢個政治背景先至嚟呢度嘅話，我哋嚟到係咪應該繼續我哋有嘅政治智慧去 get involved with 加拿大我哋而家嘅屋企嘅事呢？或者我哋應該咁講啦，香港我哋已經守唔住噶啦。我哋而家唯一可以做，即係例如嚟咗加拿大呢邊嘅手足啊，或者係移民咗過嚟加拿大嘅香港人咧，我哋起碼都要守住呢一邊啦嚇。如果唔係，萬一就又好似嚇。好似澳洲咁就真係賴嘢，好似澳洲咁嘅死火啦！澳洲就係咯，更加大添啦。係咯，即係唔係好多去邊㗎啦？而家情況即係我越嚟越差。我而家就係覺得好驚，我就係驚步澳洲後塵啊！哦，呢個唔奇㗎，呢個係咯，所以就係尤其是而家嚇我哋嘅總理咧就比較獨裁啲啦，同埋佢十分之仰慕中共呢一個獨裁噶嘛，係佢開口講埋㗎啦，已經。嗰個又有商榷嘅，不過唔好討論呢樣嘢啦。唔好淨係睇佢講嘢，你睇佢冇錯，你係應該係睇佢做緊啲咩。佢而家個行為係 support 佢嗰陣時講嗰句説話啊嘛。唉，總之都係好麻煩。